Hey everyone, welcome to the College Football Rundown. I'm Wode.
And I'm Walt.
Hell of a slate of games last week. We got some big games coming up this week. Ranked teams playing ranked teams. It's going to be a good week. Couple games coming up. While USC Washington.
That's a big game. Number 21 USC going to Washington. Number 17. Games at 2:30, afternoon game. I'm pumped for this game, Woj. I am pumped. I don't like the Pac-12. They're not my favorite conference, but really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I like watching Pac-12. It's usually an offensive battle. USC's got a little bit of a struggle there at quarterback, I still think.
When you lose your starting quarterback for the year, that's a problem. Woj. It's not going to be easy for any team, but USC, I mean, they were not impressive to me through the first couple weeks, but last week they beat Utah. That got my attention real quick. Other than that, really, if you look at them, they are undefeated, besides their loss to BYU, which came down to overtime. So I was wrong on this team at the beginning of the year, but now they got my eyes. They caught my eyes for sure.
We'll see how it goes. If Fink starts, the USC quarterback, Matt Fink, I don't think he has as good of a performance as he did against Utah in this game. I think they wake up and realize why he's the third string quarterback at the start of the season. So we'll see. I could eat my words there, but I don't think he'll have quite the impact against the Washington team that he did against the Utah team.
Hey, Utah's got a real good defense, so I don't know. Well, Washington also has a good defense, though. They're 3-1 with their only loss in that Cal game that really shouldn't count as a game at all. 2.5-hour delay, kicked off after midnight. I mean, that's an anomaly, a one-off, if you will. Jacob Eason, quarterback over there at Washington, just crushing teams. Over 1,000 yards passing already this season. I mean, that's crazy, Woj. I'm real happy he's on my fantasy football team, which is part of the reason I talk him up too. But he's good, baby. Another thing about that game too is USC has a blind snapper. He doesn't actually play all the time, but he did take a snap earlier in the season. Jake Olson, number 61. I'm always getting the question, Woj. I don't know if people ask you this, but why do you like college so much better than the NFL? Do you field that question a lot? You get that a lot?
All the time, Wall. It's pedantry. It's just you get more involved with the teams that you like. I just think it's fun.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you without even saying any words, this is why college football is great and better than the NFL, in my opinion. Tune into ESPN Thursday at 6 p.m. They got this special segment they do, College Football 150, the greatest. Check out the Jake Olson story, and that in itself will show you why college football is better than the NFL, in my opinion. So no one asked me anymore. Maybe I can get by the rest of the season at least.
Well, another big game, Virginia, Notre Dame. Can Notre Dame bounce back after the Georgia loss last week on the road?
You mean a good performance from Notre Dame at Georgia, which was a rough – you watched the game, right, Woj? We watched the whole game?
Oh, yeah.
Who didn't? Who in the nation didn't? Georgia is a tough place to play. Notre Dame brought it down to the end. Obviously, they couldn't convert in their last drive, but they brought it down to the end. I definitely think they can bounce back.
They playing 4 ranked teams in a 5-game streak. Well, that's tough. But that's Notre Dame's way of doing it because they're not in a conference.
It is, and you always hear a lot of people. This is all I hear about Notre Dame. Well, they don't play anybody. They suck. They don't play anybody. Well, they're playing 4 ranked teams in a 5-game stretch, which you just mentioned. That's what you call playing some people, and it comes from them being out of conference. They can schedule whoever they want, whenever they want. Virginia, a team where we don't know a lot about them. They squeaked by Old Dominion last week, losing most of the game, actually, and they didn't have the lead until 10 minutes into the fourth quarter. But OD in that game was getting 28. Virginia only ended up winning by 6, 23-17. Who knows about that team? I think Notre Dame, they're going to show you how well they can bounce back. Virginia, good team. Don't want to, misrepresent their team, but Notre Dame, I think, is a much better team. Still be an exciting game, though.
I think at this point now with the loss on the record, even though it's a good loss, if you can say that, for the playoff committee, I think at this point now they have to kick it in overdrive, and they just whatever team they face, they just have to obliterate, make it look convincing from the get-go. Agreed?
I don't disagree. I don't think a team like Virginia that they can just squeak by with a 1-point win, but having said that, they lost to the number 3 team in the nation, and that's their only loss in the season. So I don't know that they have to convincingly win every game, but definitely can't beat a team like Virginia by just one.
Well, game day is going to a Big Ten team again. It's got game day with Ohio State at Nebraska. It's going to be a tough road game for the Ohio State Buckeyes. In my opinion, I think this will be a good test to see if they are as good as they've been advertised so far this season.
Hey, Woj, you're on your own there. Game day at Ohio State, this is just complete bullcrap. There's no way game day should be at Ohio State at Nebraska. All it is politics and money. That's what this game is about. It's because ESPN has been doing game day 2 weeks in a row, and the actual game day was not on ESPN. So now they need to get finally a game that's on their network as their promoted game for the day. I think it's absolute bullshit. No one likes Nebraska. They liked them at the beginning of the season, but they're nowhere near the talent level of Ohio State, and I do disagree. I don't think we're going to see anything about how good Ohio State is this game. They're just going to trounce them.
Well, I ran across a video. I watch these every week. I watch the Mike Leach Washington State press conferences every week because they're absolute gold. Okay. If you made a YouTube channel just with Mike Leach, you'd probably make a lot of money because people would watch it. It's hilarious. This week he went on about his vacation home and going on the lake and having some beers and hospitality. And then he got to a skit where he talked about jock straps versus compression shorts. If you get a chance, go watch his press conference from last week, 9/23. It was absolute gold. Tune into that. And in the future, just so you know, I mean, it was absolute gold.
He's a hilarious person. Well, I got 2 sets of videos in my phone and my electronic devices. Obviously my son, I got my videos of him, and then I got Mike Leach videos because they just make me laugh. Well, you can watch any conference he has, and you're going to get a good chuckle about it. But that one you said, YouTube it, Google 923 press conference. It was pretty funny.
So for fantasy this week, Wahl, we get an Oklahoma game, which is it's just one of those things when Oklahoma's going to be in the swing of things. How much is Jalen Hurts going to be? Well, he's 9,200. He's a lot of money. But let's say this: Jalen Hurts is 9,200. He's averaging 46.8 points a game. So at 9,200, if he gets 39 points, he's above value. And I think he's going to do that. He could get 60 points this weekend. I mean, the Sooners are likely on their way to the 3rd straight Heisman quarterback.
I don't disagree, and obviously Vegas isn't going to disagree with you on that. But I mean, 39 points. That's a lot of points for DraftKings, is it not?
It is, but again, he's averaging 46.8 when he's playing, and he does a lot of the work. He's basically the offense over there. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm going to pair him with Charleston Rambo, not just because of the name, but because he is a good wide receiver from Oklahoma, and he's only 5,600. So their top wide receivers, CD Lamb, he's 7,000, and he's had less production so far than Rambo. So I'm looking for, the value there. It looks good. He's got 11 catches on the year, the best numbers out of any of the wide receivers there. Obviously, Hurts does a lot of the work himself, but we'll see if he can get a couple passes off or maybe even a touchdown from Rambo. That's what I'm looking for. Rambo 2020 right there.
Rambo versus the Raiders. I like it, Woj. Texas Tech, obviously, they don't have a great defense, so they could probably throw the ball whoever they want to. Oklahoma, that is.
Yeah, it's one of the higher over-under games of the week, just obviously because it's Oklahoma, probably one of the most explosive offenses in college football at the moment, but we'll see. Going into that game, but I do like both of those players. I do like Hurts, even though he is at 9,200, and Rambo as well. Another guy I like, and what I'll keep doing in writing, is I've been writing Alabama receivers at or around 6K. If they're going to keep valuing wide receivers at or around that number, I'm going to keep taking them. I didn't take Ruggs last week, even though I had taken him, I believe, every week up until last week. Just because he was sitting, I think it was 6,200. I think the week 1 he was at like 5,800, and I didn't take him last week, and I don't know why. It was a brain fart, but he popped off last week. Well, huge numbers last week. Devontae Smith, who's another good wide receiver from Alabama, gets a lot of yards. Any one of those receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, or Ruggs, could all pop off in a single day. So I'm going to keep riding him. He's 5,900. Devontae Smith And I'm just going to keep taking wide receivers from Alabama if they're just going to keep slotting them that low. They're good value either way. And if they get that one game where they pop off, they pop off.
So on the Woj's pop-off value, you think this guy's like, what, a 9 or a 10 on your pop-off value?
I think all of the wide receivers from Alabama are a 10. I mean, the three I mentioned, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and Devontae Smith. I believe at any point, any day, any game, any one of those guys could be the top receiver in the nation.
Hey, there you go. I think you were looking at some Texas A&M receivers this week too, right?
Yeah, I got Dramon Ashbourne, which is their most consistent receiver. He has the most touches. He gets the most receptions per game. And Quantre Davis, who in Ashburn is 6,300, Davis is 6,000. Both pretty good value. They get a lot of yards. They like to pass it to him. I like Ashburn at the 6,300. I think he's a better option. I think more locked in. They're playing an Arkansas defense, which is terrible. Absolutely terrible. So I just like one of those guys. You could take both of them if you like. I'm not sure if there's enough points in the game for both of them to come out on top, especially if they get ahead early, which is likely. So I like Ashburn's chances. He gets the more of the touches at 6,300. Another guy, and you could even lock this in with, if you don't want to go with Hurts, you could go with a more middle of the road and lock him in with Purdy. But Purdy, the quarterback for Iowa State, I think he's right around 7,600 on DraftKings. And then wide receiver, which is, I think I don't know what DraftKings was doing here, but Tariq Milton, the wide receiver from Iowa State, is 5,000. On FanDuel Wall, he's 9,300. The value there is way off. So either FanDuel knows something that DraftKings doesn't, but he's a good price on DraftKings, good for the value. He could get a touchdown easily. And again, like I said, you could even put Brock Purdy, their quarterback, and match him up with it. He's been doing fairly well, after his freshman season last year. This year, it looks like he's settled into a good role. I watched that entire Iowa State game when they played Iowa, and towards the end of the game, they were actually figuring out the Iowa defense, and they were getting chunks of yards with Brock Purdy. So I'd look for Tariq Milton and see if he pops off for you this week. That'd be a good $5,000 pick, especially if you're picking up guys like Hurts and you need to buy, need to go after some of these cheap guys. Well,
you're a traitor. I don't like that pick at all. That's garbage.
Hey, I love my Iowa, and I don't like Iowa State, but when I see that kind of value, I gotta jump on it because I want to make some money,
Hey, it's all about making the money. So like last week, we made some money. Woj, it was good. Let me tell you, it wasn't a great week, but it was a good week. Any week you're making money. In gambling section, 2 games we talked about that we won, UAB and Coastal, they covered well, looked real good. One game we lost, Houston, that was unfortunate. That was a breakdown of a program right there. You saw it in the, happening live. But Houston, they did not look good. Tulane obviously had a fake. I don't know if you watched it, Woj. It was late on Thursday night, was it? Or was it Friday night? I can't remember now.
It was Friday night, I think.
Friday night. It was too late for me. I didn't get to watch the end because I can't stay up that late. But towards the end, Tulane had a fake. They played like they were going to kneel it down and just let the clock run out. They faked it, got a first down, and went in after a couple plays and got a touchdown and won that game. But it was just really an unraveling of Houston. It was unfortunate. But, hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. As long as we won overall, that's what matters.
Yeah, there's even some more breakdown at Houston after the game and after the fact that we heard about, especially with possible transfers happening.
Yeah.
From probably one of the more explosive quarterbacks in college football, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, Derek King, yeah, he's definitely one of the more explosive quarterbacks. We'll see where he goes. But, yeah, he announced he's going to redshirt with that new, 4-game allowable redshirt rule they have. He's going to take advantage of that and transfer, along with one of his wide receivers, Keith Corbin. But again, that Dana Holgerson, he's got a tough road ahead of him to deal with all this stuff because this is a team that's just unfolding in front of our eyes. But
that locker room after someone just like, I'm a redshirt and transfer, like, what do you do if you're a fan or anything? It's just like, come on.
Exactly. But I can tell you exactly what we're going to do as gamblers. We're just going to stay away from that team. They're going to be a tough one to bet on. This week I've actually been looking at a lot of point spreads. Woj did a mini-sode this week on what point spreads are. You guys should check that out if you have time. But this week I'm looking at a lot of point spreads. Houston not being one of them, but BYU at Toledo. BYU giving 2.5 as we're speaking, over under a 60.5. In my mind, this is a very questionable spread. BYU, little beat up. Tyson Williams, their running back, their starting running back, one of the better running backs in college football. He's hurt. Zane Anderson, linebacker, he's hurt. Lala Putatu, he's hurt too. I mean, he's their tight end. He didn't get a lot of points, but he's questionable. That's 3 people right there that are injured, and I'm guessing that's what's leading to this only 2.5. BYU though is still a good team in my opinion. They've been playing well so far throughout the season. Toledo, if you look at them, 4 of their top 5 tackle leaders from that team are in the secondary. When you have your leading tacklers in the secondary, Woj, what does that mean?
That's not good, Wahl. That means that your front line isn't doing the job it's supposed to.
That's exactly what it means, especially when you run a 4-3. Again, I've only watched Toledo play one game. I haven't caught many of the replays, but I did watch them play Kentucky, and they had a 4-3 defense going at that time. But when you run a 4-3 defense, which means you have 4 down linemen, they actually have 1 standing lineman, but you have 4 linemen and 3 linebackers, and your secondary is getting most of the tackles on the team, that's not good. That means that teams are getting to the second level on you. If you let BYU get to your second level, if Toledo lets BYU get to the second level, I mean, this game is going to be over before it starts. Really what you're betting is that's not going to happen. I got BYU on Tuesday, actually, which I don't do a lot of early bets, but I saw them at -1.5, and I had to jump on it, so I did. But currently they're sitting 2.5, and I still like it.
I think that's a good pick, and like you said, especially with the 4-3, if your secondary is getting more of the tackles there, that is not good at all. That means, in a 3-4 sometimes you'll see that, but in a 4-3 that they should be holding the line stronger than they are. So
a nickel, yeah, dime, things like that. Maybe your secondaries get more tackles, but yeah, 4-3, that's not good, and they'd get to that second level. You watch, I'm telling you. But another game I want to look at this week, Penn State -6.5 at Maryland. Back on Maryland, Woj. I bet you didn't think I'd do that, but I'm backing on. Actually I'm going against them, but I'm going back on a game with Maryland. The over/under.
It's been a roller coaster for that Wall, and I'm talking roller coaster this year. Like, holy moly.
It has, and you're absolutely right. But I got to jump back in there because I'm really liking this one. The over/under's at 58. Well, it was at 58. It jumped to 61.5. But I'm not really going in there for that reason. I'm going in there because I think Penn State's not giving enough points. Maryland, you kind of mentioned before with their roller coaster ride, a team I would generally avoid betting on, like we kind of just talked about with Houston, somebody I don't want to bet on because they're really a lot of unknowns. But I think that Penn State should be given a lot more. Maryland team that is crushed Howard and Syracuse for a total of 142 points the first 2 weeks, and then they dropped a game against Temple. They only scored 15. Well, we were watching that game. You remember that one?
I do, yeah. I think a lot of it's just down to production from Anthony McFarland. If people can shut down Anthony McFarland, and look at Penn State, they haven't let a running back run over them yet this season. You shut down Maryland. So I think a lot of it comes from that as well. So props to Temple for doing what they did, and we'll see if Penn State can follow suit.
Well, I think they can. I mean, they're undefeated. They squeaked by Pitt earlier, but in that Buffalo game they struggled early too, I guess. But they ended up putting it on, beating Buffalo pretty good. I think the low spread is just because of the unknown with the Maryland team. So, hey, unknowns, throw them to the wind. I'm going to take Penn State -6.5, and I like it. Last year, Penn State actually was giving Maryland 11.5, and they won by 35. So, hey, if history repeats itself, I'll be looking good. One game I'm not taking this week might surprise people. I've been fading UMass. For those of you that have been listening, I've been fading UMass week in and week out. This week, I'm going to stay away from them. They're playing Akron, who's not looked good at all. 0-4. They played Illinois, UAB, CMU, Troy. That's not tough competition, and they haven't won a game. They're given 6.5, 7.5, moved from 4.5. But I'm just going to avoid this game altogether. You got 2 bad teams playing each other. It's probably a game I won't even watch on the television, to be honest. You going to watch this one, Woj?
Doubtful.
Oh, I told you got to start getting into these MAC teams, but I guess I can't say too much when I'm not going to watch it myself. But another group of 6 team I'm looking at this week, Cincinnati at Marshall. Cincinnati's giving 3.5, moved from 3. They put on the hook. For those of you that listened to our mini-sode this week, we went over what a hook was, and this is a perfect example of why they put one on. There's probably a little too much money coming in on Cincinnati, so they had to, give a hook up. But Cincinnati, in my opinion, is the best group of 6 team right now. Marshall, I don't know much about them. They played Boise tough in a 1-touchdown loss, but Cincinnati, I know them pretty well. They played the first game of the season, well, what I consider the first game of the season. They beat UCLA. Then they got blanked by Ohio State, but as we talked about, Ohio State's a good team. I don't consider getting blanked by a top 5 team to be horrible when you're a group of 6 teams. So I don't let that sway my opinion of them too much. I still think they're one of the best group of 6 teams right now. Another unknowable team, who knows what's going to happen. Stanford only giving 4 to Oregon State. This game opened at 3.5. Again, I don't know if I'll put anything on it, but it's something to look at. We talked about last week, Buffalo. You guys hopefully all checked them out this week. They're starting their MAC play, as we said they would. Opened at +2, moved all the way to -3. That's a crazy move, Woj. You got a favorite dropping to, well, I should say in this case, you got an underdog moving to a favorite in a 5-point swing. That's just nuts. I think people really started to put money on Buffalo and got the books off sides on that one.
Yeah, that's an odd way. That's a large spread to the change right there in a short period of time.
It is. We're only talking a couple days, but it's not as big as the North Texas. They were giving 7 to Houston, or I should say they're giving 7 to Houston now, but it opened as them 2.5-point underdogs. That's just an insane move. But again, that's a one-off, like we just talked about with a team unraveling the transfers. You're going to get a 7 to a -2.5-point move when that happens. And that's a game I'm just going to stay away from. Houston's not a bad team, but who knows there. Oklahoma, Texas Tech, over-under dropped from 73.5 to 70.5. Something I'm not going to, probably put any money on, but something those of you that like the over-unders, you might want to look into it. It's a pretty good move for 2 offensive teams.
Yeah, like I talked about, Wahl, Oklahoma could put up a ton of numbers, and I don't think they're going to let the chains put the chains on Hurd at all, just because he's going for Heisman again. I think they'll just keep piling points no matter what. And Texas Tech can score some points as well.
They can. It'll be offensive. First one to 50 wins the game. Normally it used to be first one to 30, but now it's first one to 50.
Well, some fantasy football from last week. Russo that we picked ended up pretty well from Temple, but they keep wanting to pass the ball. Still not a bad quarterback to pick up if you need one of those bye weeks, but 51 attempts again last week. So he continually is over 50 attempts in the pass game every week. Sure, he's not the best, but he's getting touchdowns, and that's all that matters, right? How many pass plays you can do, how many plays you can get out, and just they're doing it week after week.
Definitely, Woj. The more occurrences or chances you have at something, the more likely you're going to get points out of it, especially with passing attempts.
Isaiah Spiller didn't work out quite as planned from last week, Wahl. He then ended up not getting the starting job. Jacob Cabote ended up starting, but he, again, had a terrible day, just 21 yards and 6 carries. I'd imagine versus a bad Arkansas team that, Cabote and Spiller might get some reps, but at this point, I'd probably just stay away from him. Arkansas has given up 472 yards and 32 points a game so far this season, but that's per game. But who knows? We'll see. But it's not something I'd probably play this week just in case they do have a lot of shared reps and go from there. Another guy, Wahl, that I wanted to talk about, and I saw him on the field this weekend, was at the tight end. And people make fun of me, but it's tight end. Cole Kemet from Notre Dame came back from a collarbone injury. He did pretty well that game, Wahl.
Did pretty well. He was Notre Dame's whole offense for the first half. He was a sight to see. He reminded me of, you remember Samardzija from Notre Dame back in the day?
Yeah, for sure.
That's who he reminded me of, Woj. He dominated that game towards the beginning especially.
Yeah, 9 grabs for 108 yards and a TD. That's big numbers from a tight end, especially in college football. If he's still available in your league, I doubt it, because he was a top prospect in drafts and fantasy at the beginning of the year, but obviously he was hurt. Someone might have dropped him. Might be one of those guys you want to pick up and continue having on your roster if somebody already hasn't. Another good play this weekend is UAB's defense. They're playing Western Kentucky. The Blazers have not allowed more than 20 points in a game and have 15 sacks and turnovers combined in just 3 games, Wall. In just 3 games. So they're a force to be reckoned with. Kind of like a Komodo dragon's a force to be reckoned with, Wall, right?
It definitely is. You could what they should do is bring that Komodo dragon they keep talking about, having a live Komodo dragon as a mascot. They should bring him out in the field. I guarantee you Western Kentucky's not going to go anywhere near there. They're not going to get 1 touchdown. That'll help your pick for
Yeah.
the week.
Yeah, especially if it starts just eating children like they talked about. That'd be kind of a little scary.
It would be. And those of you that don't know what we're talking about, you should Google it. But the UAB president had some words to say about his decision before of maybe putting the Komodo dragon on the field as a mascot. Just utterly ridiculous, but you guys should check it out.
I think they should do it, Wall. I think they should get like maybe get like something that it eats or something, or entice it to breathe fire. I don't know, something like that. Really scare the other team.
Well, I'll tell you what they should do is they should bring it over to TCU and have them eat their horned frog mascot. Those guys pissed me off last week. They played horribly, and they were my pick for the Woj and Wall Pick'em.
Yeah, not a good week for both of us. Well, I had Washington State minus 18.5, and that wasn't even near it because they ended up losing the game. But it was that was an offensive showing. Anthony Gordon from Washington State had 9 touchdowns, Wall. 9 touchdowns. The total on the game was 130. The over-under was at 60. Both teams scored over 60 on their own.
I don't know. I like defensive games. I like Big Ten football, but I did watch the replay of that. Obviously, I couldn't stay up and watch that game as late as it was, but I watched the replay. There was a lot of offense in that game. It kind of got ridiculous towards the end. And also, what about Gardner Minshew's cut-off jean shorts? That was a little ridiculous, too, speaking of it. But, again, that's not my type of game. I'm not a real big fan of that, but the offenses did go off.
He's in the NFL. He can do whatever he wants now, Wall.
From what I hear, I don't know if he's going to be there for long. But again, I'm not the NFL guy, so I was only going off what the commentators said on Saturday.
So after I just said all that information, which is, Washington State played UCLA last week, and the score was 130. I'm going to take UCLA at Arizona in the under at 70.5. Okay, so I'm going the opposite way because I don't think, UCLA, yeah, they did score a lot of points there, and there are games this year they have scored a lot of points versus bad defenses, and Arizona, kind of the same way. But UCLA hasn't played a defense like Arizona's, and Arizona's just going to run the ball if they get ahead. So I'm going to take the under at 70.5. I don't like that game going over 70.5, and I think it's bloated based on what they've been doing so far this year. So my pick this week is UCLA at Arizona 70 and under on the 70.5.
Well, Woj, I'm pretty excited then because I'm going to have 2 reasons to cheer against you. I have Khalil Tate, who's obviously Arizona's quarterback on my fantasy football team, so I'm going to be wanting them to score 100. And I'm real excited to cheer against you in 2 ways. But as far as my pick this week, I'm going to have to go with Cincinnati minus 3.5. I'm going to give up the hook. I just think they're going to be a better team than Marshall. I think they're one of the best group of 6 in my opinion. And this is a game where they got to show it to make sure they get a good bowl game towards the end of the season.
Well, let's see how it goes this weekend, Wall. Thanks for listening, everyone. You can catch us on Twitter at WWCFB. Our Instagram's college_football_rundown. Our website, which you can get all our podcasts and information and contact me and Kyle on, is collegefootballrundown.com. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'm Woj.
I'm Walt.
And this was the College Football Rundown. We're out.